This show is called All Trey Phases for a reason, and that's because we appreciate every aspect of the game of football, and that includes special teams. And while we do not appreciate the special teams performance we saw from the Atlanta Falcons in Week 1, we're still going to take a look at the film and figure out what was going on, because it was more than just a missed field goal. We saw some trouble on both of the return units. Are those troubles things that the Falcons are going to be able to fix, or are they going to linger into the season? We take a look at the film, and thank you for stopping by and tuning in to the first official special teams episode of All Trey Phases. We're going to start with the first play of the day on special teams, and this kind of set the tone for the day. Younghoe Koo is going to miss the landing zone, which is, the 20 to the goal line now with the new dynamic kickoff rules. You have to kick it in here. If it's short, the ball's going to be on the 40. If you kick it into the end zone, the new touchback is the 35. And so, this is the biggest, I think, change and adjustment to 2025 when we talk about, what's happening in the league this year. Offenses only need to get 15 yards now before they get to midfield. And, depending on who you have as a kicker, you really only need 2 first downs until you're in, field goal range, because we see, there's a lot of these guys now making the 60 to 58 yard plus, et cetera, and making it look easy. And so it's a new wrinkle to, the game of football this year. And unfortunately, the Falcons are going to just miss the mark here. Koo is short, and I know, people are like, how can you do that? It's so easy. What the Falcons do here is they're trying to execute a bounce kickoff. And so the goal, right, is that Koo is going to be able to get this ball to hit right here at the edge of the zone, and then it's going to cause, a bounce, which should then force, a dirty field for the returner, meaning that it shouldn't be a clean ball. It should take them an extra second or two to kind of have to get that up and secure it, which then means that, your coverage unit gets, an extra half second to break through, the wall of blockers now. And we're going to see that, this almost works to perfection. And unfortunately, Atlanta isn't. We see a messy field. And again, this was the whole intention, right? Now we're making this tackle. The opponent's starting with the football at the 20 at best in this situation. And so I like this aggressive kickoff strategy, right? This is something that I think is really innovative and smart to do. You just have to be able to hit this shot if you're going to make this call, because the penalty for being short is a lot harsher than the penalty for kicking it, into the end zone. And if this ball lands in the loading zone, they have to field it. So I like this strategy. Unfortunately, it just did not work out for the Falcons, and it kind of set the tone for the day. And so this is the return that happened with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And this, was, again, really unfortunate. Tampa Bay does a much better job, I think, of executing their blocks than it is like the Falcons just outright, failed or had a massive mistake. But there is a little bit, some execution errors going on. We're going to see a stunt is called, and think of it as the same way as a stunt on the defensive line. We're trying to, confuse these blockers, and we're trying to get a free man break through, and we're going to see Kaderil Hodge does break through here, and he's almost able to make this play. Unfortunately, we're going to see that Jalen Walker gets doubled out here on the outside, and that kind of allows, the return man to spring, to that next level. And then we're going to see Jordan Fuller gets blocked up, is only able to kind of throw an arm out there to make a tackle. But again, Tampa does a really good job of getting this set up. And so you're going to see it's important to remember who your returner is. And this is an actual running back. So he has an understanding of being patient, reading his blocks and everything like that. Tampa does a really good job. I kind of like this. They come down to peel off this guy that, let him be a free runner, think that he has, that free lane to the return man. And they're just going to block him out here really cleanly. Jordan Fuller is then going to get taken care of. He's not going to be able to get off this block. And this is what I was talking about here. You see Jalen Walker getting doubled. This is kind of, what creates the overloaded side. I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 blockers, 1, 2, 3. You know, you don't like those numbers. Tampa's able to take advantage of it. We see that the stunt worked. Hodge is almost able to come in and make this play. But it gets a little compact and crowded here, and that kind of contributes to, you know, the return team not being able to make this tackle. Tucker does a really good job of reading, and I mean, that's a really nice tackle by Koo that prevents, you know, that could have easily been 40, 50, much worse, you know, result, but we still don't like this result in the fourth quarter when the opposing team is down and having to come back. Again, just unfortunate. And so this is the other return here. We're looking at it from this angle so we can kind of understand, you know, what does out kicking your coverage mean and look like. So, you know, when the return man gets the ball here, we're going to see he's got about almost 15 yards, and you know, from where he is to the closest gunner. And you know, this does contribute, you know, to the big return here. It gives him more time to set up. But you know, this shouldn't have resulted in a 54-yard return. We see guys outkick coverage weekly. That's not kind of an excuse for the lane discipline that we're going to see. And so we're going to point out, you know, Jordan Fuller, D'Angelo Malone, and then we're going to see Mike Ford coming across the screen. In my opinion, Mike Ford just goes a little bit too sharp with his approach. And so that then affects the guys that are following off of him, because you're going to see, you know, the goal is to set up off of each man's outside shoulder as you go down the field. And Ford gets out, you know, love the start, but we're kind of seeing this happen now. And so he goes in very sharp. Fuller is having to maintain that relationship, that distance between him and Ford. He doesn't want to get too far inside because that kind of works to the returner's advantage, helps kind of bottle up, you know, everybody in here. Malone is then having to set up here. He gets a little wide to start, but you can kind of already see what's happening here. And these blockers are almost in perfect position to set up a lane. And then as this play develops, you're going to see the communication aspect of special teams. You have this player right here who points out to his returner after he fields the ball, hey, open lane, come this way, all this space, whatnot. And this is, you know, the issue here. We see that we're able to get blocked up, and it turns what should have been a modest return gain into, you know, a momentum swinging play in the third quarter of a tie ball game. Tampa's immediately in, you know, field goal position. They're going to get points here, and you just can't allow the opponent to get, you know, any kind of advantage in that situation. The field position battle is very important in the game of football, and you know, the NFL, you know, made a big effort, I think, to kind of reapply that pressure to the special teams unit. The dynamic kickoff had not been as dynamic as advertised. And we're going to see more returns. We're going to see more special teams plays that I think have a bigger effect on the game than we're used to in the last couple of years. And look, you know, the Falcons built their roster and prepared for that. We saw a lot of decisions made around special teams. You know, when you talk about D'Angelo Malone, Mike Ford, a couple of these guys, Felipe Franks, you know, this was supposed to be a strength of the Falcons football team, and it just didn't look that way in the offseason. And we're going to take a look at the missed field goal kick from Koo here. If you're not familiar with this, Koo has a very unorthodox approach. You're going to notice he's a lot further inside than most kickers. You're going to see guys usually set up here, kind of go with that approach that we've seen, you know, every modern kicker use since it kind of got, you know, invented. And Koo, unfortunately, you know, I've listened to others who understand, you know, the details of kicking, and Alex Katzen is somebody that I trust a lot. And he talks about the main issue here being that Koo's plant foot is just too far away from the football. You're also going to notice that he kind of falls away from this one as it happens, and it just is not the result we want. Looks like somebody opened up a window in Mercedes-Benz. I don't know if the Avatar showed up when Tampa needed him most, but you hate to see this, man. This is somebody who he clearly wants and is doing everything he can. It's just not the result the team needs. And that's why they have somebody else, in the building today. But, the Falcons special teams performance, it just was not dialed in week 1. So how concerned should fans be when looking at the special teams unit? From the kicking standpoint, there's a legitimate level of concern, right? That's why John Parker Romo is here. That's why this team is already having another kicking battle after, they had one this summer with Lenny Craig coming in, who was really more of a developmental guy that they're able to stash via the IPP program. And so this, obviously is not ideal. This should have been taken care of. Could this have been worse? I guess, I guess you want to get this taken care of, at the beginning of the season, if versus, it popping up midway or halfway through, and, all these reserve kicking options or these options like John Parker Romo just aren't there. That's your glass half full look at it. But, in reality, this is something that shouldn't have been an issue in 2025. This was something that, we were assured of was taken care of. And, Atlanta and this staff are really going to have to, make the call here to do what they need to do in order to get a reliable kicking game back again, because they just don't have that right now. When it comes to these coverage units, I have a lot of confidence that Marquise Williams is going to be able to get things cleaned up. The team is dealing with some injuries. I think DeMarco Hellams is somebody that would have played a big role on those coverage units. Troy Anderson, regardless of whatever you think of him as a linebacker, has always been a plus contributor to special teams. That's where, the athleticism is really able to shine. And so he's another guy that I think when they get him back, the coverage unit is going to see another boost. If Troy Anderson is even real anymore, I have no idea. I have not seen that man. But we're assuming that Troy Anderson is still alive, still on that injury, still in the building somewhere in Flowery Branch. Maybe they got him, in one of those high-tech Matthew Stafford rotisserie chicken healing boxes or whatever that thing was that he had down in the LA parking lot. But I think that there is, some optimism to be had about what the coverage unit can get to and what it should be, because the Atlanta Falcons made, a lot of moves, to kind of ensure that this phase of the game is a strength for them. And it was not the result that they wanted week 1. And in any phase, honestly, but I think that, we're still seeing that Bradley Pinion is a really good punter in this league. He had the slide out kick, but when you're consistently getting that ball pinned inside the 10, you love that for the field position battle. And I think that we're going to be able to see Atlanta bounce back from the coverage unit, but there's going to have to be a tough decision made about that kicking room. And some people are going to probably say that decision isn't too tough at this point, and I think that's fair. But, thanks for checking in on the special teams episode of All Trey Phases. Had a blast breaking this down and looking forward to bringing you guys more analysis from every phase of the game.